Hello and welcome to this quick video in which we're going to be talking about how do back orders get held within the EWM solution and allow us then to secure the supply chain by picking them when the stock is available. And we're going to manage this process through the use of waves, or what we call picking waves, and how those waves can get released. So first of all, we have our warehouse manager here, and our warehouse manager is monitoring the system to see what can be released. Now, at this point in time, the way in which work is released into the system, we have a number of different options in how we can do that. We can do it automatically via what we call wave releases, and those wave releases can be performed by customer priorities, i.e. if orders come in that are high priority, we can release those first, secondary priorities. We can also do them by what we call routes or location-based fields and flags on the system. Each of these waves in which how they get released is based on timings too. So it could be, we have a particular state we want to pick for by this particular time. Let's have a cutoff, and then we can release those orders all at the same time. Now, waves give us a whole bunch of advantages because what it allows us to do is to really consolidate those picks together. So if we have many picks for the same item, we can pick them all at once and then separate them out for the individual orders, and other efficiencies that come with the wave releases. One of those efficiencies we're going to talk about a little bit about is back ordering. So if an item is not available for pick, the wave can be released, but it might say, well, hang on a second, you don't actually have all the items available for this pick. So let's maybe hold off on that and we'll maybe do some replenishment or wait for a purchase order to come in and do the receipt against that. And then we can re-release it, and then of course the full order can be picked in total. So our manager can monitor this, of course, through the system and all the analytics that they have. But when we look at this, obviously, just to run through it, if the stock is there, we can release a wave, all good. But if the stock isn't there, we might want to back order that and hold that wave until the stock is available. There may be, of course, a cut-off time that just becomes unviable and you want to pick the rest of the stock anyway. And there are many, many different controls which we can have around that. The way in which these waves are created and released is controlled by conditions. And the conditions are very much like a bunch of rules that we put in the solution to say, how do you want to do this? So the waves basically say what time, what customers, which materials or products you have in the solution, so on and so forth. So there's many, many different conditions we can add to this, and it's very, very flexible. The waves also have what we call a wave creation rule to them. And the wave creation rule says, how do I want to create this wave? For instance, if I'm using specific resources, I might say only create enough picks to be carried on a trolley. So each person who is doing the picking may be using an individual trolley, only create a wave so I can split the work between those guys. It could be that I'm releasing it in pallet loads, so on and so forth. It really depends on obviously those rules and those wave creation templates that we put in the system. So just to recap, we're going to be monitoring the system. We're going to look at what's available. We're going to release a pick if I can, and I'm going to create a wave which allows me to put all my customers' orders together if the stock is available to go and pick it. So let's go and take a look at how that looks in the system now. So let me just jump into the system here for a second. Now, of course, I've got all my nice analytics and things like that to check things out, and I can see how my picking's happening. But most of the time, when we want to get into the nitty-gritty, we go into the warehouse monitor. And what the warehouse monitor allows me to do here, of course, is to not just look at a specific wave, which I am in this particular instance, but also look at all my waves in the system too. So I can see everything, how my waves are being picked, what status are they at, what's the cutoff date, what's the cutoff time, when was it released. So all these nice little features you can see at the top here around, what category does it fall under, what's the wave type. So these are all different things that we can put about how this wave was actually created. Remember, I talked about those conditions saying, okay, this is when this is going to get created and this is the type of wave it is, and that's all automatic in the system. So we don't have to trigger anything unless we want to, of course, manually. But what the system will do is do that automatically for me. Now, if I go and take a look at this wave here, I can see I've only got one order on it. But of course, we could have many, many, many orders on here. And if I want to, I could actually go into this document and just take a quick look at it and see what's going on with it. So I can see here, it's a very, very basic example. I've got one order with one item on it, and this item here is ready to be picked, but it also has a delivery priority against this item. Because this item is just a normal pick, we're just going to release it as normal, but you'll notice here that you can see 1 through 7 as different priorities. We can add to the system through our normal configuration as many different priorities as we want. Remember those all-important conditions that we had to create the wave. We can then use this data to determine how we actually create those waves and which ones are priority, which ones get dropped at which time, so on and so forth. So all that kind of detail is there inside the system to allow us to control how those waves get dropped for picking. So let's go and do this now. So I'm going to manually release this one. Remember, often we would actually do wave release automatically and based on times and those types of things. But in this case, I've just triggered it manually just so I can show you the process actually working. In this particular case, we don't have the stock. Damn it. So what's going to happen in this particular case, because we've designed it this way, is to basically stop the process and say this item is not available. Therefore, what we're going to do here is we're going to stop the pick, and essentially this order then becomes a back order in this solution. So it's waiting there, sitting there for the stock to appear. Now, if I want to, I can also automate this process. Now, I obviously released that manually there, but what we can also do if I want to is this wave creation can continue to happen in the background as a background job, as we call it. But background job is just a little program that continues to run all the time, trying to retry things in the solution. So if you think about it, if that stock then becomes available, the wave could be released. So we can hold these orders as, if you like, a back order or a hold in the system until we're ready to pick everything as one. And there are many different rules you can put around that. We could actually allow it to release and just not include that particular item if I wanted to. So if we go and have a look at the stock just to see what's going on here, I'll just type in the product number. We can see here that we now have the stock in the warehouse. So I've jumped forward in time a little bit here in this process, and I've receipted some stock in. The stock is now available, and you'll see here that I now actually have 8 of them available at the top there. You can just see I've got 8 available. So what we're going to do is we're going to flick back to our wave, and we're going to have a go at releasing that wave again. So let's go back out of here. And I'm going to re-release that wave in the solution. And now, because we have the stock, you'll see now I'm getting a nice message saying, yep, I've done that, I've released it, and now it's available for picking. So this will now release that to the floor, and it will allow my guys to go and pick it and on the RF and do all the stuff they need to. So just to finish off, so you've seen the process working there. You know, what happens if there's no stock available? Obviously, we can control that through these conditions and say, what do we want to happen? And those types of things. So what I wanted to do here is just quickly show you some of those conditions in the system, just to show you the idea of how this kind of works. You'll notice if you look at the left-hand side here, you'll see that all these different fields can be taken into consideration when creating waves and releasing waves and those types of things. And when they do that, of course, we can do things like, you know, who is the carrier that's doing this? So who is the company taking the stock? Who are the specific ship tos and things like that? All those priorities and things like that. So routes, usage, even shipping conditions, you know, things that might be delicate versus items that are not, and in some circumstances chilled rather than ambient, and those types of things. So all these elements are taken into consideration when we're actually releasing the wave to go and check that stock and control those rules around it. So there are many of them available that we can play with and mess around with. So just wanted to show you that, really, just to give you an idea of, some of the sophistication we have available in the solution that allows us to play with this stuff in here. You'll notice that these conditions that are being picked up at the moment here, and as you can see, if you look just above me, you can see here the template that it's actually picking up on. Remember I mentioned earlier that as this condition is true, it picks up that specific template to say, if it's this route and it's these types of materials and so on and so forth, it picks up that template and allows those waves to be created in a way that's meaningful to us and obviously useful, and drives the optimization and all those good things in the warehouse. So just to recap, what we looked at there really quickly was, obviously we had our warehouse manager. We're using the monitor and we're using our analytics to see what's going on in the system. It's telling me what's happening rather than me having to go and check stuff. And what I can do is, as I release my wave, if something happens to be on back order, i.e. it's not available at the moment, it will hold that and we can continue to try and release it until the stock, of course, is available. I can then release my release my wave and tell it to go and pick it when it's actually available, so we can actually effectively pick the full order as opposed to a partial pick. And remember, our rules can be tweaked and maintained in the system to ensure that we have the correct rules based on priorities for our customers and, of course, all the different types of stock items we have in the system. Thank you for watching. I hope you found that useful. My name's Stephen Chittenden. I work for SAP in Australia and New Zealand. Feel free to get in touch if you have any further questions around how waves work or how stock in general works in SAP EWM. Thank you very much for listening.